struggling, when our heart is heavy, when our burdens just weigh us down, we know that you are there, that you are present, that you are with us, that you are guiding us. Lord, we need that recognition today, that remembering that you are there, that you'll never leave us or forsake us, that we're not alone. For those that are struggling and asking why, sometimes we get in our own way. Sometimes we know that you have blessings for us. We know the truth. We know the light. We understand what you can do in our lives and our hearts. But for some reason we resist and push you away. Sometimes it's just a bad decision in a really, really crazy moment. So Lord, today we lift up Andre to you right now. We lift up his family. Be with them. Help them to know that you are there. You are Lord. You are on the throne. You are sovereign. You knew it before it happened. And sometimes we ask, why? Why do we do the things that we do? Lord, bring us back to you. Lord, all throughout the Old Testament, there are these times where the Israelites would get sidetracked. And you'd send a prophet into their lives to say, get back on track, focus on me. What was dead can now be alive. We need this resurrection. Lord, we need that today. Lord, for others, it's a week of celebrating. A new baby. New life. And for those, it's saying an unexpected goodbye. Not being able to say goodbye. Lord, I pray for hope. I pray for joy. I pray for newness. You are there in the good and the bad, the joyful and the sad. You are there in every moment. Help us remember that we can come to you with any problem, with any burden, with any joy and celebration. You are there. And the great thing is we also belong to this thing called the church, where we have other people that we can go to and cry with, and laugh with, and celebrate with, and mourn with. We have these people in our lives that can encourage us and challenge us. They can keep us accountable. keep us in the light. Lord, may we listen to you. May we have a heart that follows after you. And what Satan meant for evil, you can redeem and bring light into the sorrow. Lord, we pray for all these things, fully expecting salvation and resurrection. Thank you. We pray this in your name. Amen. Oh, good morning. Glad to be with you guys here today. I have a couple announcements that I do want to draw your attention to. In a couple weeks, we have our local church conference. We'll be meeting here and also having some food to celebrate. I think we don't eat enough, at least together. We probably eat way too much apart. But so we're going to eat, bring something to share, and we'll talk about the year past and what God we hope to do in the future. So that's coming up in 2 weeks on May 19th. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then also coming up in about a month from now, so May 31st through June 2nd is going to be our regular camp out. So set up a tent out in the yard, bring up your RV. We have a few hookups for those as well, and we'll be eating a lot of food then as well. I guess every announcement that we have has something to do with food. Maybe that has something to do with us a little bit. So it's a good thing. Food together is a good thing. It's a way to celebrate, a way to get together and hang out. Last week, we talked about Jesus and the light. And Jesus is definitely a good light, right? In fact, he says, the light of the world. It's a true light, he says. Now, that light changes our perspective. It frees us from the darkness, and it reveals the truth. And Jesus is the truth. He's the true light, and he changes everything. But I want to pose a question to you today. What if all you know is darkness? What if all you know is darkness? What if it's hard to see the light sometimes? And even if there are some lights in your life, maybe those glimpses of hope, sometimes it's just hard to get to it. How do you find the light? And what if you were born blind? What if you were born in the darkness? Is it really possible to change? Can God really transform someone's life? Is it possible to change? And to top it off, if you were born blind, what if you were told your blindness was due to your sin or someone else's sin? How would you feel? This is exactly the scenario we find in John 9. The disciples and Jesus are walking by this man, and for some reason they know this man that was born blind. Maybe Jesus told them that. Maybe it was the hindsight that they knew he was born blind, because this is written a few decades after the fact of this story. But the disciples ask, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents that he was born blind. So the disciples believed it. The parents probably did as well. And if that's the case, the blind man was probably told this from birth. That he is in this scenario because of someone else's sin or his own sin. This is what is known as a systemic belief. It takes on everyone, right? How did this become a belief when it's not even really something that we should believe? Now, Jesus addresses this wrong belief. In other words, he says something that they never expected him to say. And he says this in verse 3 of chapter 9 of John. He says, neither this man nor his parents sinned. So he's trying to correct this wrong, right? He's trying to correct this belief. But this happened so that the work of God may be displayed in his life. As long as it is day, we must do the work of him who sent me. Night is coming, when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. So there is that statement again. I am the light of the world. Now Jesus then does something they never expected him to do, right? Jesus is a God of the unexpected. He does things that we never expect him to say. He does things that we never expected him to do. Jesus spits on the ground. That's a little odd. I've seen people spit on the ground, and it's, sometimes they have to do that. They have to get the phlegm out of the back of their throat or whatever. I don't blame them. Sometimes it can be a little bit disgusting. But Jesus literally just spits on the ground. He takes some of the dirt, mixes it with the spit, and makes mud. And I'm sure they were watching him do this. And they were starting to question, what is he going to do? They had just seen him write things in the dirt. Now he is spitting into the dirt, and he's mixing it and making it mud. And then he takes that mud, and he does something really disgusting. He puts it on the eyes of the blind man. Then he says, go wash in the pool of Siloam. So the man went and washed, and the man came back seeing. In a matter of a moment, this guy's life did a complete turnaround. So much that the people didn't even recognize him. They're like, was that the guy that sat at the gate begging because he was blind from birth? Is that man? Is he the one? Or not? Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. So they go and question him. What happened? So the man tells them what Jesus did. And then the people that questioned him went and told the Pharisees. You got to hear, you got to see what happened, right? You got to go see this man who was blind from birth, and now he can see. So the Pharisees go to this man, and they ask him about it. And so he explains it again, what happened. And then the Pharisees, typical Pharisees, get mad. Why? Because this healing happened on the Sabbath. Man, I wonder what got them to that thinking. What penetrated those beliefs that made them think that miracles could not happen on the Sabbath? Was that too much work for Jesus? Did he cross the line? So they ask him who did it. They try to authenticate what this man actually says, and then they try to authenticate that this man was actually blind. Well, maybe he wasn't the blind man. Maybe this miracle didn't actually happen. Maybe he's making it all up, and now he can see, right? And so they're like, well, let's go talk to this man's parents. Let's see if he was actually blind to begin with. So they bring in his parents, and the parents confirm that he is their son and that he was born blind. but they cannot confirm who healed them because they weren't there, right? Like so they're not going to say what they don't know, right? So they told the Pharisees, go ask him. He's of age. Did, what they already did. But because they didn't believe him, they didn't understand, right? So they talked to the man again. I don't know what they're going to try to figure out because they ask him the same questions. They keep asking him the same thing over and over, and they're trying to get him to say, though, that Jesus is a sinner. And he's like, well, I don't know. The one thing I do know is that I was blind, and now I see. There's a miracle that happened in my life, and God changed it for some amazing reason. And I'm just thankful. I'm just blessed today, right? And then he asked the Pharisees a question. I love when people ask Pharisees questions. He's like, do you want to become his disciples too? There's a lot in reading into that. Because do you want to become his disciples, right? And then he says, two. Maybe alluding the fact that he has become a disciple of Jesus already. And he really doesn't even know him yet, right? He knows this guy healed him. Do you want to become his disciples too? The Pharisees did not like this question as much as I did. They hurled insults. They got even more mad. You are this man's disciple? And I almost see like spit coming out of their mouths, like foaming at the mouth. Like they're just frustrated. You are this man's disciple? We are disciples of Moses. So they're following this guy that is a good guy to be followed, right? Moses did a lot of stuff for the Israelites and pointed them to God, right? He was the guy that brought the commandments down from the mountain. But that was also thousands of years ago. That was prior to this experience. They never met Moses. They never saw these miracles. But they see this miracle happen in the guy's life, and they want to make it out to be a sinner. Can you imagine? They hurled all these insults. They say, we know God spoke to Moses, but as for this fellow, we don't even know where he came from. I get it. Jesus is kind of new to them. They're starting to get to know him, although they've experienced some other things prior to this. This is not their first thing that happened with Jesus. But Jesus is saying some new ideas, saying some things to mess with them, to mess with their tradition. He's starting to get in the way, right? It may be a little overwhelming for them. It may be hard for them to grasp a little bit. The man replies, now that is remarkable. You don't know where he came from, yet he opened my eyes. He performed this miracle. You know that God doesn't listen to sinners. That's what he says. He listens to the godly men that do his will. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. And this made the Pharisees even more angry. The man was saying all the right things. He was speaking the truth, things that he saw, the things that he knew about. And the thing is, the Pharisees knew it. It scared them. So they went on the attack. Because they can't rebuke this truth. They can't rebuke this testimony that this guy has. So they go on the attack. You were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us? And they threw him out. Whoa. Can you imagine? Can you imagine getting to this place that you spiritually abuse someone? Because that's what they did. That's spiritual abuse. And they're trying to get him to go back into this place where he thinks he's a sinner, or that his parents were a sinner. This systemic belief, this wrong theology, the systemic belief now is full circle, right? It's not just people that are growing up in the faith, but it's people that are teaching the faith. And that's sometimes how those systemic beliefs work, right? Those beliefs that are wrong are sometimes taught to us by our teachers. And here the teachers of the law believe and teach this belief, and it is wrong and it's misleading to teach something that is not true. And that's where it becomes spiritual abuse. They throw them out of the synagogue. I think, church, we need to be careful about what we are teaching as truth, what we are taking in as truth. We got to be careful what we attach Jesus' name to, because we can have that same ability on other people that are around us. These Pharisees are trying to hold on to their tradition, to their power that they have. And they feel themselves losing control, and they no longer care what gets in their way of doing it. They don't care for this man, nor the woman that they brought in front of Jesus who was caught in adultery. They didn't care about her. They don't care about him. They want to prove a point. This man's life has changed forever, right? His perspective has been changed because he can now see. He can actually see colors for the first time in his life. He can see this man that has healed him. He has been freed from this darkness, and the truth has been revealed. And Jesus hears what happens. And he goes to the man, and he asks him, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" The man asks Jesus, "Who is he, sir?" See, he still doesn't know all the answers yet. "Tell me so I may believe in him." Jesus replies, "You have now seen him. He is the one talking to you." And it's like a light bulb goes off. This man replies, "Lord, I believe," and he worshiped him. I don't know if he dropped to his knees. I don't know if he bowed. I don't know if he gave him a hug, what? But he worshiped. Because he was thankful that this man, this Son of Man, healed him. He was able to see. And if someone has that type of power, that's someone you want to be able to follow. This is someone you want to be able to worship. And this is what Jesus says, "For judgment I have come into the world, so the blind will see, and those who will see will become blind." Right? He was talking about physical blindness here, blind will see. But he was also talking about spiritual blindness too. So those spiritually blind can see me. But he was also talking about the spiritual people that weren't able to see him. Those who will become blind. So the blind will see, and those who will see will become blind. That's interesting. Because the Pharisees thought they saw the truth. I think they were good-hearted people in some ways. In some ways. They were trying to do what they felt God was leading them to do. Now, at somewhere along the line, they got that power hunger that got in their way. But I think sometimes, even in our desire to follow God, we do some wrong things. The Pharisees hear Jesus say this, and they say, "What, are we blind too?" Jesus replies, "If you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now you claim you can see, your guilt remains." Really kind of makes me ask some more questions. And I wonder if they were asking themselves these questions. Am I believing the right things? Does my perspective need to be tweaked, changed? Am I stuck in this darkness, thinking that I'm in the light? And what really is this truth? The Pharisees thought they were following God, but somehow they arrived in a different place. Are they following in the wrong footsteps? Sometimes I wonder if I'm following in the right footsteps. Am I making the right decisions? Am I following the right beliefs? Or do we make things too difficult for others to follow God? Do we throw people out who are trying to follow Him? Do we write them off when they don't believe the same way we do? The last few weeks we have focused on I am statements of Jesus. I am the bread of life, right? Where God really provided for the Israelites in the desert, this manna, this regular sustenance. And then Jesus, on the mountain, passed out all this bread and had a bunch of leftovers, right? Had 5 pieces of bread at first, and then had 12 baskets of leftovers. That's a miracle of God, right? And then last week we talked about I am the light of the world. And we're talking about it now still. And that's okay. But we're going to add another still yet today. That was just the intro. Today we add another one. I am the gate for the sheep. You know, Jesus speaks simply. He speaks metaphorically. So we're going to look at John 10 right now. Very truly I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all on his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize the stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. Verse 7, therefore Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. May God bless the reading of his word today. Lord, open our eyes, open our ears, open our hearts to what you have to say. Amen. I love Jesus as a storyteller. He paints such vivid pictures with his words. Here it says he is talking to the Pharisees. And he talks about this sheep pen and how that some thieves and robbers come into the sheep pen. I believe it is the same Pharisees from John 9. I think it might even be the same story, just a continual love. Sometimes we put chapter or go from 9 to 10, but it's the same continuous story. I think sometimes we get distracted by those numbers that say a new chapter, but I feel like this is the same story. So the same Pharisees that Jesus was talking to prior about the man's blindness. And he's talking about the sheep pen, and he says, I am the gate for the sheep. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. Now, I think we think a little bit differently of a sheep pen than how it actually is. So I'm going to show you this video. I want you guys to check this out because this is what a sheep pen would look like back in biblical times. Isn't that a cool way to think about Jesus? I am the gate. I'm the gate for the sheep. Right? He's the salvation, at least for the nighttime. For the nighttime, they would go into this sheep pen. Right? It is hard to protect the sheep in the open. You can do it a little bit, but it's really easy when they're in this small, tight quarters. Now, thieves can't really come in. It's possible for a thief to probably jump a wall, but it's not going to happen as easily as when they're out in the open. The shepherd is the gate of the sheep pen. He is the door. No one gets by him unless he allows. No one's just walking in. He sits at the entrance protecting the sheep. The sheep cannot leave, at least during the nighttime. The thief cannot come in. The sheep are safe. They are protected. They are taken care of, and they can rest. It reminds me of Proverbs 18:10. The name of the Lord is a fortified tower, or a strong tower. The righteous run to it, and they are safe. What is your safe place? Where do you go to feel safe? Where are you most comfortable? I'm sure most of you will say home, right? It is easy to walk in the front door, take off your shoes, get comfortable. Maybe when you've gotten home from the day of work and you get off your work clothes or whatever, and you put on some maybe pajama pants, something maybe soft, some sweatpants or something. We call them cumps in our house. Cumps, our comfy clothes. I wonder how many of us feel like church is that safe place where we can go, where we don't feel attacked, that we know that we're going to be safe, that people will listen to us rather than just attacking. Well, sometimes maybe work can be that safe place. I know some people who have tumultuous work or home experiences, right? Like, work can be a haven for some people. School can be a haven for some people. What is your safe place? Where do you go when you want to be comfortable? Maybe it's not a specific place. Maybe there's a specific person or group. Maybe it's a spouse or parents. Maybe it's a teacher or a pastor. I hope you feel safe with me. It's good to have safe places and have safe people that you can go to. What do you do when you arrive to your safe place? Right? Relax. Know that you're protected and taken care of. A lot of times when you get to that safe place, your true self comes out. You don't have to hide who you are because your family or your church family know who you are anyway, right? So you can feel safe to say the things that are on your heart, the things that you're struggling with, the things that you're going through. Everyone needs a place or people like this. But I pray it's not just a home, but I pray that a church or Christians can be that safe place. That we can be a light in a dark place. For the sheep, their safe place is the sheep pen, right? But notice, the sheep pen, you don't stay in past the night. During the day, you have to leave the sheep pen. Some of the sheep pens they saw, it was like stone on the bottom, right? There's no grass there. So they're not going to be able to feed themselves. They're just in there temporarily for the night to be protected during the nighttime. Eventually, they have to go out. Why? Partially to have nourishment, to eat, to grow, to stretch, right? Because you saw how crowded they were in that sheep pen. They wouldn't be able to exercise in that sheep pen. Sheep need to move. Sheep need to get out there. They come in and go out and find pasture. Finding pasture is finding like this freedom. And pasture is important. We need a pasture. We cannot stay in the confines of the sheep pen all the time. We can't live in the confines of the sheep pen 24/7. Pasture is important. We need to eat. We need to get nourished. We need to move and exercise. And the pasture is where these sheep experience real life. The pasture is also risky. It can be hard. It can be difficult out in the pasture. They can walk off and get lost. And a lot of times they do, right? Like that's where you get the illustration of the 99 sheep, but one goes off and gets lost, and Jesus goes and finds it. Because it's more important for him to go find that sheep than the 99 that still remain in the pasture. That sheep was in danger, and he was going to go find him. They can get stolen. A wolf or a lion or a bear, right, can come and take a sheep. We have multiple stories of David protecting his sheep with his slingshot. Right? There will always be risk in the pasture, but this cannot keep us from going into the pasture. We cannot always stay in the sheep pen. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy, and it can happen in both the sheep pen and the pasture. But we have to take the risk of going out to let the other sheep know. The sheep pen is smaller and does not give a lot of room to move. It's where you get bored, right? gets where you become content and stop growing. You get stagnant, and your muscles become weak and eventually atrophy if you stay in the sheep pen because you're not moving. In the sheep pen, you're safe, but you can never experience what Jesus calls abundant life. We need to get out of the sheep pen. In the sheep pen, sometimes we get focused inward. Naturally, we gravitate towards what is safe and comfortable. And at times, we need that. That's why they go back on a daily basis. We need that safety. We can't leave and live in the risk all the time, right? We need to come back to the sheep pen, and I think that's why we come to church on a regular basis, so we can feel safe. Jesus would go off on his solitary place every now and then and spend time with his Father praying, right? That was a safe place for him. Sometimes he would take one disciple or 3 disciples or 12 disciples, and he would take them off and to these places and to learn, to grow together outside of the sheep pen, right? But they would return to the pen every night. The shepherd would take watch by sitting at the gate, right? There's no door there. Jesus is the door. He's the gate. If he moves, people come in and people come out. But when he's standing there, no one's going in, no one's going out. He's the door, he's the gate. But they would return to the pasture each day. They'd come and go. They'd have to leave their comfort zone. They'd have to have this balance of the pen to pasture, because you need times of risk and times of safety. And you need both. And this part is important in experiencing an abundant life. You will never experience an abundant life without taking a few risks. And as a disciple, we need the safe place. We need the church. But we need to get out into the pasture. We need to get out into the world. This is where we're able to thrive. You need the world just as much as the world needs you. You can't fulfill the greatest commandment in the church, because the first part of the great commandment is go. You got to leave the sheep pen. You cannot rest in the world, though, because it's risky. You cannot rest in the world. You have to retreat to your safe place. The sheep pen, the church. Sometimes it's in the uncomfort that you grow and are transformed, where you have abundant life, life to the full. I pray for an abundant life for all of you. If you're not already there yet, I pray for an abundant life for everyone. We're going to close the service a little bit differently today. We have this video I want to show you guys. Just a song that has